Hey brother. Ben, it was just Star Wars Day, and may the 4th be with you. And now we have successfully survived the revenge of the 5th. Which means today is the return of the 6th. Actually, I don't think that's a thing, and it sounds more like Sith, which isn't good, because we want Jedi. Or do we? Today we will examine some of the galaxy's greatest defenders to see if the Jedi are really all they're cracked up to be, or if the Jedi are evil. This is a Star Wars theory. Ah, the Force. Much like duct tape, it has a light side, a dark side, and keeps us all together. The light side is typically represented by the Jedi, and the dark side by the Sith. At least that's how it is for the 6 Star Wars films and the animated series The Clone Wars, which is all I'm going to be focusing on in today's video, so please don't jump down my throat for anything in the expanded universe, which I'm not very familiar with. Both sides, Jedi and Sith, use that terminology. The Sith actually acknowledge that they use the dark side of the Force. So that's it, case closed, right? I mean, they're basically calling themselves the bad guys, aren't they? Or are they? Just because we associate the words light and dark with the words good and evil doesn't necessarily mean that those using either side of the Force are good or evil. In fact, I think it's more likely that both sides of the Force are just very appropriately named based on what emotions you have to use to harness the power on either side. Darker emotions like hatred and anger fuel the dark side of the Force, while more positive ones, mercy, compassion, honesty, fuel the light side. But just because you have the capacity to love or hate doesn't necessarily make you good or evil. Take Anakin Skywalker, for example. He turns to the dark side because he wants to save the woman he loves. Now don't get me wrong, Ben. I'm not saying the Sith are good people. They're not. They focus on being angry and hating others to grow their power. Not exactly what you're looking for in leadership. But it's not like the Jedi are just sitting around loving one another either. In fact, they forbid it. Again, look at Anakin, driven to madness because he was not allowed by the Jedi to love the woman he loved. So what are the Jedi rules? Well, I know there's a bunch of versions of this, but here are the basics of the Jedi code. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, only harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. Before we continue, I think this is a good spot to point out that if you are a user of the Force, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a Jedi or a Sith. These rules don't apply to you to use the Force, only to be within the Jedi Order. However, it's unlikely that you'll be able to train yourself to use the Force without the help of the Jedi or the Sith, so you'll probably have to fall into these rules. So let's break it down. There is no emotion. There is peace. Aw, peace. That sounds so good. But wait, what was that first part? No emotion? Guess I could do the rest of the video like this. No emotion? Are they crazy? I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but basically that's a very like Spock, Sherlock, logic conquers all the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few no matter what kind of thinking. And I know the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few is a lovely public message for the Jedi as an organization to present to the public, but on a personal, individual level, nearly impossible. This is why the Jedi are not allowed to have emotional attachments or relationships, because it could impair their judgment in a situation. Would you let your wife die instead of saving a bus full of strangers? I mean, certainly saving more people is greater than saving one, and those are the impossible kind of decisions the Jedi would be in if they were allowed to have relationships. Because even if in that situation you had the emotional clarity to save the people and let your wife die, you'd be filled with that guilt for the rest of your life. So no attachments. Easy peasy. Except that again, it's impossible to not have an attachment or a relationship with anyone. I mean, it's basically the definition of interaction. And even the Jedi seem to have some concern for their Padawans and respect for their leaders, do they not? Do you imagine that in that bus situation they would save one of their own instead of the bus, reasoning that saving one Jedi could save more people down the line? Maybe that's true, but if you're on the bus, how do you start to feel about that? There is no ignorance, only knowledge. Well, that doesn't sound that bad. I mean, just the pursuit of knowledge, I think we can all agree that's a good thing, right? And while the Jedi are always searching for new knowledge about the galaxy and the Force, they're not very good about sharing that information. And the Jedi have a lot of power. Their librarian in the second movie says, if it doesn't exist in our database, it doesn't exist. So basically they've got what they believe to be a complete working knowledge of the galaxy, but it's only accessible to those within the Jedi Order. Their reasoning is fairly sound. Those who seek knowledge seek power. Power leads to the dark side. Yeah, fair enough, I guess, coming from the people with all the knowledge and power. To be fair, they have gathered all of their own information. It's theirs to do with as they please. And I understand restricting the flow of information within a religious organization, and I understand not wanting people to gain enough power to disrupt the peace. But peace according to who? The Jedi? What gives them the right? It's not like they were elected or anything. There is no passion. There is serenity. Serenity now! This is kind of in the same vein as the first statement. You need a cool, logical, serene mind versus a passionate one? Oh, yeah, right. Because, of course, we wouldn't want our peacekeepers to, you know, be passionate about keeping the peace. And of course, when I say peacekeepers, I of course mean war generals. Can I just point out that I think it's weird that the peaceful and serene Jedi all carry weapons and are literally the generals of the Republic Army? Okay, cool. There is no chaos. There is harmony. Okay, well that is just blatantly incorrect. There's no light without shadow. There's no peace without conflict. You can't have one without the other. So I just don't even think that makes sense. But perhaps this is more of an inner thing for the Jedi. They must detach themselves from their inner turmoil in order to be at harmony. But wouldn't like removing all conflict from your inner self stop you from trying to better yourself? How are the Jedi supposed to grow without any inner conflict? I mean, it just seems counterproductive if you ask me. And are they just ignoring all of the chaos out there? That doesn't seem like very good peacekeeping. In fact, to me, it sounds ignorant. There's some knowledge for you, Jedi. And lastly, there is no death. There is only the Force. Okay, well that seems like pretty fair game for most religions. There is an afterlife, you join the Force, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What are we left with here? Emotionless, logic-driven, superpower beings, some of whom have access to all of the knowledge in the galaxy? Self-entitled, peacekeeping war generals? Then the Jedi undoubtedly live harsh lives and apparently in the name of peace. But again, peace according to who? The elected members of the Galactic Senate they claim to defend? The fact is, the Senate is at the mercy of the Jedi. The Jedi who will not share their vast knowledge of the galaxy with those who have been elected to run it. And the Jedi who will not accept new members into their order except by their own choosing. And of course, by choosing, I mean the removing of children from their homes at a very young age to be raised in a very harsh religious environment. Their intentions might be good, but their inner workings are certainly questionable. So Ben, my question for you and everybody else is, Jedi, infallible superheroes of the galaxy, or... No, Ben, I did not come up with all of this on my own. I've left a link in the description that goes into much more detail about the evilness of the Jedi. I encourage all of you to please go check it out. Also, thank you to everyone who's been sending me grilled cheese versus taco drawings. They are amazing. And a big thank you to 777 Green Day 777 who sent us this amazing painting of Ben and I, complete with baby giraffe, grizzly, eagle, shark, and pig wall. Can you see it? Boom. If you'd like to mail us anything, our P.O. box is in the description below. Join us next time when I discuss the Sith Code. May the Force be with you, and I will see you in another life, brother.